Cool.
What were you doing there?
Yeah, I just came, good. I'm good so far. I just came from the Mass Art Library,
Uh-huh.
and I printed out every single thing that that I put in terms of what's on my proposal.
Yeah.
Printed out everything, and I'm kind of like laying it out right now. And I've also got all my books, and I ordered 2 more from Greg. As a matter of fact, I
Wow,
spoke
that's
to him,
awesome, man.
so I spoke to him today. He's going to be ordering these 2 new books for me. And again, Joe, like I really want to focus on what we were talking about in terms of um, keeping the subjects, sticking with what I'm doing right now,
Yeah.
but also too, I'm looking into. I saw something, Joe. This is really weird. I saw something yesterday that had to do with the Manhattan Project, and it
Yeah.
had to do, something like with. I got to read it again, but were people being tested for radiation? People of color tested for radiation before the bomb was dropped. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, that sounds absolutely possible.
I know, and
I don't know for sure, but it sure sounds right, doesn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
And the reason I asked is just because I really want to stick with the focus that we were talking about, Joe. I don't want to go too far. I really feel comfortable,
Yeah.
personally speaking, with the subject matter that the subject that we've been talking about. And I want to get your feedback on direction wise, in terms of how I present my thesis for the 20-minute presentation. Now, Joe, you said that the presentation was going to be live, right? In the auditorium? Is it going to be in the
I
auditorium?
don't think I said that. You might have heard it from somebody else, though. I don't
Okay.
know for sure. Maybe Fish mentioned it or Martha
Mhm.
mentioned it at reviews a couple weeks ago.
I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah, but I don't know how
I
much
mean,
time you're gonna have.
I think it's, well, for our final review, we have like 20 minutes.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah. And I would think that the bulk of that 20 minutes has to do with the thesis. And then the remaining time has to do with our final deliverable for Martha's class.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Chris. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because we only have one project left for the deliverable for her class. So we have to do a 10-minute videotape, and we also have to do a case study as well.
Yep.
You know.
Okay, yeah. So you know what I've been thinking that might be
Mhm.
a useful tool for you is to maybe make a timeline.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
From Reconstruction to today. And if you could just get that up on the wall, you could start to. I just think it would be super useful because it shows a very clear, unfortunate, clear path from the way Black released slaves were treated and where it starts.
Mhm.
I mean, it's unfortunately, Chris, it's a very straight line,
Yeah,
from
exactly.
very cause, effect, 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 effect,
Mhm.
effect. It's the same
Exactly.
thing over and over again. But I think also it would help. A timeline could be interesting because there have been so many remarkable achievements in the field of medical
Mhm.
treatment, but I don't know that it's hitting the disenfranchised communities or the Black
Yeah,
community at
I know
all.
what you're saying.
So
Exactly.
that might be a good way to show it
Mhm.
and
But see,
build.
I'm basically trying to build the correlations, Joe, between, for instance, what happened in Tuskegee, what happened in the 1918 flu epidemic, what's happening with the AIDS epidemic, what happened with the AIDS epidemic, excuse me, what's happening with COVID-19 to show the pace of the inequalities, and it's always been basically written into the medical profession going back to when slaves were experimented on. So I really think a timeline would be good for me because it's a straight, this is what happened,
Yep.
these are the results,
Yep.
and this is what's happening now as a cause of those results.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's the really good way to think about it, Chris. And you've been super clear about that from the get-go. So,
Mhm.
so I think that would be a really good way to show it. I think in terms of what we haven't talked about yet, which is really fine,
Mhm.
is how you see the final form of this,
Yeah, exactly.
being developed and presented.
Mhm.
And I don't think you should be in any rush to think about that. But
Yeah,
another thing that I was thinking about, like, you're not dealing with such a long period of time
yeah.
that people can't sort of relate to it a little bit. But sometimes the best way to learn about a historical event is through the life of one person.
Mm.
And so it'd be really sort of interesting. Do you know who Buddy Guy is?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I was
they,
watching.
he's a blues musician.
Oh yeah, brilliant! I
Mhm.
love him. And I was watching a really very emotional uh, uh, documentary about him the other night, and
Mhm.
it starts with pictures in the field of cotton. Starts with seeing cotton
Mhm.
because he grew up in Louisiana,
Yeah,
picking cotton as a young man.
I believe it. Mhm.
And then here I'm watching this documentary on this extraordinary human being who becomes like one of the greatest guitar players of all
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Exactly.
Like, but he grew up picking cotton. His
Mhm.
dad was a sharecropper. His mom was,
Wow.
the family worked the fields.
Mhm.
He remembered walking to school 3 or 4 miles and the kids on the white bus passing him.
Yeah.
White kids had a school
Mhm.
bus. He didn't.
I know.
And he just passed away in the last couple of years, I think.
Yeah, exactly. He just passed away like 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
really gentle man, really, really, but man, put the guitar in his hands and he's just like a monster, right?
Exactly.
So, but it
Exactly.
was weird to think that, like, and I grew up in the South,
Mhm.
where we used to go and have field trips to cotton fields every year in my elementary
Really?
school. Yeah, yeah, we would go and pick cotton because it was still, and at the time, my dad was working as an aerospace engineer
Oh, okay.
for Boeing, putting men
Mhm.
on the moon. But there we were. We would go to the Aerospace Museum, or we'd go pick cotton in the fields in Alabama.
Wow.
It was
Really?
weird. Yeah, in Alabama, 1960s. Yeah, 1960s,
Wow.
1965, 60s.
65, really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's when I was there, as a kid. So
Mhm.
when I think about it now, it's like so weird to think that I was picking cotton. We were doing this. It was still such a thing.
I know that's what no, but I mean the thing is though, Joe, what's so weird is that I will be 60 years old in April. And it's just really hard to believe when you mention that you guys were picking cotton in 1965. That just shows you how not that far away time-wise.
That's my point. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
In
that's my
terms of
point.
like, you're saying 1965, so you were around what, three or so?
No, it's 5.
Oh, you were five. Okay,
I'm
so
going to be 62 in April. Yeah,
I'm
I'm
62.
62
Okay.
in April.
Yeah,
So
because my birthday is April 13th, as a matter of fact.
yeah, mine's the 6th. So
The sixth, yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So I just find it's just really weird that you're not that far removed from,
no,
you know what I'm saying?
no,
I
that's my
mean,
point. That's my point. And this guy grew up
mm,
on a sharecropper's farm.
I know. I know.
Like so. It's just he had
So
to.
Joe, do you think I should base this on, not base it on one person, but
No,
maybe base it on like, just say uh people, for instance, who got sick on the plantation, where they had to rely on medicine, homemade remedies, and so on.
yeah,
Maybe I could use a part of that to talk about how, with there not being hospitals, with
yeah,
hospitals being segregated,
yeah,
how did homemade remedies not necessarily take the place of medicine at that time,
yeah.
but it was medicine that was used to uh what word am I looking for? Like, you know what I'm saying, in terms of, if they couldn't go to a hospital, could I use medicine, one of like a homemade remedy, as a, not even a focal point, but more like a reasoning for why they had to do what they had to do, I guess, in some ways.
Well, what I think, you're in this weird place now, Chris, where you've got this really beautiful idea, but you are going to have to, not so much this year, but certainly over the summer and next year, you've got to figure
Mhm.
out how you want to tell that story.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
that's why I think like the overall form could be kind of interesting to think about. And so um, there are these economic forces, racial forces, social forces, and they all bear down on the problem. And so, human beings are incredibly resourceful. So the slaves who are locked to the plantation, that land, with no
Mhm.
access to whatever medical care was available then.
Yeah.
Whites had lots more access, but it wasn't
Mhm.
great for anyone
Yeah.
at the time, probably.
Mhm.
But at least they're clearly thinking about it, and so they're developing their own healthcare practices that include um, uh, home remedies. So
Mhm.
I think it's really crucial to talk about those, but in a weird way, that's not something that's available to the southern diaspora who moves to the
Mhm.
cities of Detroit and Chicago. They're
Yeah.
they're probably not developing their own homemade
Yeah,
remedies.
exactly.
They've
Down
lost
south,
that
yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, you can start to think about how you want to tell these stories, but I think each one is a different story that just
Mhm.
unfortunately is deeply connected to the previous one. So that's why I'm sort of suggesting like one way to think about it is in the form of a timeline.
Mhm.
Another way to think about it is in terms of like you could even think about it in terms of your own family. I don't know if you wanted to make it that personal, but like when
Mhm.
does your family come to the Boston area?
Well, see, I started a family tree on Facebook about 9 years ago,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and people who have my last name around the world, black, white, pink, and purple. My family came up here in the early 1900s. My grandfather, they were all from North Carolina,
Okay,
Henderson County, North Carolina, as a matter of fact.
that's
Henderson
great.
County, and also South Carolina, as well as Maryland, but primarily Henderson County, where they came up to West Medford, Massachusetts. And my great great grandfather was a businessman.
Uh-huh.
He owned his company. He owned a variety store, but he also used to wax floors. The name of his company was called Parham Floors, where they would go to places like um, uh, Providence, Rhode Island, and a lot of the big dance halls that were in Boston and in Medford and so
Oh,
on. You know what I'm saying? So he
yeah,
was a businessman, and they used to go do floors.
yeah.
And he was a real entrepreneur. Him and his wife. His wife, my great great grandmother, was a Wampanoag Indian, and she was,
Really?
yeah, Wampanoag, black, white, all that.
Wow,
You know what I
cool.
mean? So she she was from here, as a matter of fact, from the Wampanoag tribe in Massachusetts. So she met my great great grandfather here while he came from North Carolina, I believe.
Yeah.
So when I look back and say to myself, like, what type of things did he sell in his store? Like, like what type of medicines did he have? Did he have medicines in his store that were based on home remedies?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's my personal thing in terms of my great great grandfather. His name was Otis Parham,
Yeah.
and my great great grandmother was Marion Parham. And again, like I said, she was Wampanoag, black, and Caucasian.
Wow.
And the thing is, can I maybe include that, or maybe talk about stuff as a whole? You know, I mean,
Well, what I was thinking, like, I think like I read the New Yorker magazine a
mhm,
lot, and they've got this basic narrative structure where whatever they're talking about, they'll talk about like a really big issue, but they'll introduce a character, like a real a real person,
mhm,
to start to tell the story of this bigger picture, and then they'll move back and forth between the big picture and the individual. And I think that you're going to have to talk about the big picture because you are talking about big social, political, economic, environmental upheavals,
mhm,
in the Black community for sure. Um, so you need to talk about that, but the way you can make that more appealing or more manageable for your audience is to have like characters along the way. And I was just thinking, like, if you used your own family as an example, since you've already done all that work,
yeah.
I mean, can you trace your family back to Reconstruction? Can you go back
Yeah,
that
well,
far?
the thing is, I have a family tree, And my great grandfather, his name was Irving Parham. I believe he was born into slavery in Henderson County, North Carolina.
Wow, dude,
You know,
that's
his name was Irving Parham. My cousin Terry Parham has done some research, and he even went to the plantation, which was owned by Asa Parham, and also another guy named Parham as well, who were slave owners in Henderson County and also in Oxford County, in North Carolina. You know, so maybe I could go, you know, kind of maybe go there in terms of saying, which one of my ancestors was born into slavery, and where did he or she go from there? How did they, if they were born into slavery, how did they get well? Did they take homemade remedies?
Dude, this is
You know?
amazing. This is amazing because you've got the macro and now you've got the micro. And that's amazing that you have that information. I would strongly urge you to consider using it if you're comfortable.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I am.
But that's beautiful that you've got that research. And now imagine, like, you know, telling the stories of your family in the context of this greater story that's taking place.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing, Chris. That's fantastic that you
exactly.
You can go
And
back.
that's kind of, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe. Sorry about
No, no, no. It's remarkable to me to think that your great grandfather
that.
was born into slavery, and here you are working on your master's degree.
Exactly. And the thing is,
it's not that far. It's not that long a period.
no, it's not that long. No, not at all. Not at all. And see, that's the thing too, Joe, is that I'm kind of like, I like the idea of using my family or my great grandfather in this story because they would be the primary part of the narrative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They would, I just think that he or she would lead the narrative into what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
You know. And I have no problem using my great grandfather, you know, and I like to, you know.
And other people in your families, like at these moments in time, like he was there at Reconstruction, who was there during Tuskegee, you know, who was there during the race riots, you know, like
exactly.
And it's just a beautiful way to connect, to make it a very personal story. And I think it's really going to help us to resonate. Now, you have to figure out how you're going to tell that story.
Yeah, I know.
You know, that's a different thing. But I think like the way they could come together could be really beautiful, Chris. Really exciting.
Yeah, I have no problem at all. I'd like to use that because I think that would make, it would give me, I think for me, Joe, on a personal level, it would give me more of a sense of like how they live their lives.
Yeah.
And how they live their lives through, and when we stick with the whole idea of being, you know, of medicine and of sicknesses and how these diseases were born out of the slave ships, but also born out of working 12-hour days with no rest, 7 days a week, you know, and how do you relate that, Joe, to an essential worker during COVID?
Yeah, you know, I know we've talked about it a little bit.
You know what I mean? Like an essential worker who has to work, a guy who has to work to feed his family. Can we correlate the two?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think,
you know what I mean?
Oh, I think you can. I mean, it's hard. I can't imagine. I mean, genuinely cannot imagine the level of physical and emotional stress a slave went through.
Exactly. PTSD. Going back to PTSD. You know.
Oh my God. I mean, every day must have been. You know, I don't care how nice the master was. It's a form of, it must be just trauma every day. Exactly. Like physical trauma by the number of hours and the literally backbreaking work you're doing.
Exactly.
And the emotional trauma, the abuse, yeah, I mean, I think if there's ways that you can help your audience understand that, would be pretty great.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have a much better idea, I think, Joe, of what I would like to do with this project without me losing track of the story I'm trying to tell.
No, every week you're super clear about it. It's getting clearer and clearer and clearer all the time. And that's great credit to you, Chris. I mean, it's exciting to hear you speaking so clearly about this project.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really starting to, because I'm almost done with the proposal, and I'll be getting that in as soon as possible. But I just want to make sure that my
Hey, listen,
proposal.
that's not due until the end of the semester, you know.
Oh, I thought it was due. I thought that it was due on March 31st.
That's an outline. That's just an
Okay, the outline. Okay, okay.
But I'm even going to move that date. I don't know why I made it so soon. I'm going to move it. So
But see, I pretty much got it written, but I see the thing is,
great.
Joe, is that the more I talk about it,
Yeah.
I get more ideas, but at the same time, I really need to stay laser focused. I don't
Yeah.
want to,
Yeah, I know.
you know what I mean? I just don't want to go all over the place. I really don't, because
You're not, man. I got to say,
you know
you're
what I'm
not.
saying?
You've
You know,
been
that'll make me lose. That would make me lose like how I really would like to tell the story, and me telling the story through my great grandfather is where I want to go.
I think that would be so moving, really moving, and incredibly effective as like a narrative.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. That's considering that he was born into slavery. I think he was born in slavery ended in 1865. So I think he was born in 1835. I'm not sure. I gotta just double check, you know. But he was born in the South, and then he moved up here to West Medford, Massachusetts, and then Boston, you know.
Yeah. Do you know if his parents were able to have been married?
Well, the thing was back then, I think both of his parents were married, but the thing is, blacks weren't allowed to be on the census or even given birth certificates until after 1865.
Oh, so
You
you're
know what I
just,
mean? After blacks weren't allowed on the census until after 1865. So a lot of times, even after slavery, their
yeah.
marriage wasn't necessarily wasn't recognized by the state.
Yeah. I see.
You know.
Yeah, interesting.
So I definitely have to find out if they were married or not. His parents, that is. You know what I mean? You know. So I'm just gonna see what happens, Joe. I'm just gonna keep on going.
I love what you're doing, man. I
Thank
just
you, Joe.
keep working the way you're doing, Chris. It's really exciting to see.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna jump on this and get. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I've been singing your praises to Fish and Martha too. I want you to know I've been like
Thank you.
reporting back and saying how thrilled I am at the direction your work is going in.
Yeah, Martha's gonna be. She's gonna be my She's gonna be my advisor for my thesis.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. She can really help you get a handle on the tools and medias and technologies you might want to consider using to develop.
Exactly.
All right, man. Great work.
Okay, Joe, I'll talk to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I look forward to it, Chris.
Cool.
Bye.
Sounds good. Thank you. I'll see you.